Hey, kia ora team. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Tonight is a best of. As some of you will know, I'm on bereavement leave, not entirely sure when I'll be back. It'll be probably before Wednesday, the 21st of June, recording this on Tuesday, the 13th of June. This may be the same recording as you see starting another show, but the clips will be different. So if you've caught the start of the show and this feels like the start of an earlier show, trust me, the clips that follow will be different. I just don't have a lot of time today, as I'm only recording one introduction. Thank you for all the kind words that I've received through Twitter and Facebook and other things about our family situation. I'm not sure exactly when we'll be back operating as per usual. Keep an eye out on us. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, at Pat Brittenden on Twitter. That's where you get the up-to-dates as to what's going on, when we are going to be live, when we're not, when we're going to be back in Dunedin, I guess broadcasting as per usual. I would expect that to be some part in the first half of the week of the 19th, 20th, 21st of June, but I don't know as I'm recording this right now. So follow me on Twitter. That's where you get the latest updates. And the clips that follow are all different from a previous best of, if you've seen it, trust me. And before we get going, at the time of recording this show, I want to say thanks to all our patrons, you lovely people who are supporting us and what we're doing. This may have changed. There may have been a flood of people joining on Patreon by the time that I've recorded this through to the time you're seeing this. But as of recording, these are our lovely patrons and they give us support in what we do. They help us do what we do, and we thank you so much for it. Enjoy the clips that follow. We will be back to regular broadcasting as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for your support. We love what we're doing, me and Chewy. I look forward to getting back to this as we normally do. And until we see you next time, be safe, be well, and here is some best ofs for you. Christopher Luxon talking on the AM show this morning about co-governance and how it works, how co-governance should work.
That yesterday at Ratana. Chris Hipkins hit back and said on co-governance, he said there's a particular park in the Hutt Valley in his electorate, Te Whiti Park, which has long been managed by co-governance between Maori and between the government or the local council. He says no complaints, great facilities, in fact, better facilities than there were before. It's working well. Do you have a problem with that?
No. So really the issue is this, which is that if you think about co-management or co-governance as it was previously used, it was in the context always of local iwi, working with local government to manage local natural resources in the context of treaty settlements.
So that's the first thing. The line of demarcation that he's trying to draw is it's about local, local, local. Now, one could argue straight away that's a particularly unbusiness model-like way to run anything, to have smaller entities all being funded and costing to look after things rather than a larger conglomerate. It would be like Air New Zealand, for example, having an Auckland base and a Wellington base and a Dunedin base and a Christchurch base and a Tauranga base all being funded independently and operate independently. But that's not the best way on a business model, and only using that because they're his terms, to get the best bang for your buck. It is to centralize things. But the argument here from the man who's talking about business is as long as it's local and as long as it's got to do with natural resources, we're okay with it. All right, we'll keep going.
And by and large, those arrangements have worked incredibly well because Maori have fantastic contributions to make and into decision making around those kind of assets. What we're talking here, though, is over the last few years, the government has done something different, which is to start to take that word co-governance and put it into a completely new and different context, which is centralised bureaucracy for the delivery of public services. And that's been my frustration. And as I've said to the Prime Minister before, is, hey, listen, on a constitutional issue like co-governance of public services, which are designed for all New Zealanders, health, education, justice systems, critical infrastructure like Three Waters, that's a different case. And from my point of view, that's what I was saying yesterday.
So co-governance of public services, which are designed for all New Zealanders. That's the quote. I wrote that down. Co-governance of public services, which are designed for all New Zealanders. And then he cites health care as one of them. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you may have already seen this today. I don't know about you, Chewy, but cervical screening is somewhere within the healthcare sector that I don't have access to because I don't need it. I'm excluded from it, and it's within one system having a separate setup for another group of people who need that setup. So this is where I start to go, well, how are we now drawing a line in the sand when he says co-governance of public services, which are designed for all New Zealanders? That's why he's against co-governance. But prostate cancer is not designed for all New Zealanders. Yes, it's within a health system designed for all New Zealanders, but so is a Maori Health Authority.
Yeah.
Anything, sir?
I in broad strokes, I just don't see what he's afraid of. Like, we saw how effective Maori groups could be in a healthcare setting when they just said, give us the money and let us reach our people. And they did. Like, vaccination rates within Maori were really low until basically they just went out with vans to marae and started talking to the community to get things done. You know, that's what National's all about, getting things done. So give it to the people that are getting it done.
Well, we're going to get into that as well, because the thing that's most confusing about this conversation is, and not to sort of get ahead of ourselves, but when he gets asked, are you okay with iwi providing their own health services and the public funding it? He says, that's what I'm talking about. What's the Maori Health Authority? But look, I'm getting ahead of ourselves. Let us continue.
Okay with the park and the hut, that's cool. Co-governance of the Waikato River, you're fine with that too.
Yep.
That's working
I think
well.
I think those arrangements have worked
they're working
really well.
So co-governance of natural resources like that, you're okay with. What is the difference? So would you say then, in regards to the Waikato River, that you are in support of the co-governance of natural resources like that?
Yeah. So
So what's the difference between that natural resource and Three Waters?
Yeah. So essentially, those natural resource those co-governance arrangements around local natural resources have often been done in the context of Article 2 of the treaty, which is fantastic, and we support that, and that's been positive, I think, by and large. What I'm talking about, though, is that actually having separate healthcare systems, education systems, justice systems.
But that's the hang on.
That is the delivery of public.
So this is now the line National's trying to sow. That's a fantastic freeze frame. That it's a separate health system. Now, he talks about Kohangareo and that working within the current education system, but he's talking about we don't want to set up a separate system. Now, Ryan Bridge, again, credit where credit's due, just eliminates this altogether in a sec when he points out that the overall healthcare system is a $15 billion industry. The Maori Health Authority is worth about $150 million. There's no way that they're setting up their own healthcare system for $150 million out of $15 billion. What's that? That's 1%, $150 million? Because 1.5 billion would be 10. Yeah, so it's 1%. So it's 1% of the health budget. And Christopher Luxon's trying to sow the seed that we don't want to have separate health systems for different people. Although within the system, he's okay with within the system there being, specialist areas even for and by Māori, but he doesn't want a different health system for and by Māori. Like
that's good, because that's not what he's going to get, is it?
Exactly.
I noticed that he chucked justice in there as well, and like in all of these cases when there's been trials of increasing Māori participation, Māori leadership in these areas for Māori, they've seen better results in pretty much every circumstance. We've had everybody's the same healthcare system for 50 years.
Yeah.
Longer. And what all that has delivered is atrocious outcomes for Māori. So if it's not working, let's not do it anymore. Let's try something else.
Let's be clear, right? It's not just atrocious outcomes for Māori. There are other groups of people who have atrocious outcomes for them as well. However, we have a contractual arrangement with Māori to deliver something to them, right? That doesn't mean that we ignore the health issues with Pacifica or with, disabled people or any other group as well. But we actually have a contractual agreement that needs to be abided by at the moment. Now, if in 10, 5, 100, 5,000 years from now, that agreement changes, that's fine. But we currently have a contract, right, known as the Treaty of Waitangi. And that means, yes, we are a multicultural country with multicultural needs to be provided, but we're basing all that on a bicultural agreement. So actually, the Maori Health Authority speaks to what the contractual agreement we have as well with Maori. Now, some people may not like that. They might go, well, gosh, what does that mean to Maori? How do we decide that? Well, that's actually what they're in the process of doing. How you don't decide that is to go, fuck it, you can be like us. When being like us is not working, all you got to have a look at is the 9 years life expectancy less Maori have from the general population. Something needs to be done differently. There is a sector of society who needs more and something specifically done to help them in health. The Labour government is calling that the Maori Health Authority. The national government is like, just let's keep on going with what we had in the past. Ignore that, which isn't working. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll keep
Absolutely.
going, yeah? Keep going.
Services. And that is a very
but let's take
different
Three
thing.
Waters. Let's take Three Waters. You're okay with the co-governance of a particular body of water, but not national bodies of water. Why?
No, what we're talking about with respect to Three Waters, that is about infrastructure. That is about pipes and the management of stormwater, wastewater, fresh water, and that's a different issue.
So, Waikato River, that all those things apply to the Waikato River, right? There are pipes that go in and out of the Waikato River. They have to worry about fresh water. They have to worry about sewage. All those things on some level are handled co-governance via the Waikato River. So now he's red herring it. He's almost gaslighting it because he's saying that doesn't apply to that at all, where it does. It may not apply to it as clearly and as much because Three Waters is about pretty much pipes and pipes alone, but pipes, which is his infrastructure issue, are also contained within the Waikato River. So it's gaslighting to say it's got nothing to do with that. It's completely different. It's factually inaccurate.
In the sense of those assets paid for by local government, local citizens and ratepayers, they should be returned to them, and there isn't a role for co-governance in that kind of conversation.
And this is the other question that we often say, using our lovely friends at Ngor as an example. So he says that the locals have paid for it, the locals could get the benefit from it. So, Mr. Luxon, here's my question. What happens in Ngor and any other country, any other area where $300 million needs to be invested to bring that infrastructure up to code? If you're saying it's all about the locals putting their money into it, therefore are you also saying that if money needs to be put in, it's got to be on the backs of the locals? Because what that means is $50,000 over 10 years per ratepayer in Ngor. What's your solution for that, Mr. Luxon? Because to me it seems obvious that's going to have to be centralized, but you're saying here right now saying it can't be centralized. So what is it? It's
an argument that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like the government's not going to come in and rip up the pipes and take them away from us, start from scratch again. Like, people don't think about their pipes. They think about their rates. They think about their taxes. And by replicating all of the same thing right throughout every council in the country sounds awfully inefficient to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And look, we'll say it again. Not carrying water for anyone. I think the concept of Three Waters is good. The execution of Three Waters is shithouse. And the communication of Three Waters is shithouse. The idea, and Gore's your perfect example, that's going to be centralized. Yep. You in North Canterbury, you in Waikato, you in Wellington, you in Auckland are going to be paying for Gore's infrastructure. So following Mr. Luxon's example, you shouldn't be. Gore, go fuck yourself. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. Because the other thing about Gore, right, that's right next door to Balclutha. Right, thing about Balclutha is it's right next door to Dunedin, and it's right next door to Southland. It's right next door to Queensland. So if Gore is this little third world country with their infrastructure, because under national, locals have to look after it, that is going to flow on to other regions. Now, I'm saying Gore because I know about our local stuff. Wherever you are, you will have a neighbor, or you will have a neighbor to a neighbor who is in the same boat. And if they've got lead in their pipes, if they've got Campylobacter going through their pipes, what, do you think the water's just going to stop where the pipes meet your boundary? So it stops there because our infrastructure is fine. Of course not. It's ridiculous. Right, we'll keep going.
What we're talking about is the delivery of co-governance of public services. And that's what I came to Ratana yesterday, and it was raised with me at Ratana, and I thought it would be disingenuous not to say what we think about that.
Okay. So
we can, because my argument's very simple, is public services are designed for all New Zealanders. We have one government. They deliver a public service to all New Zealanders in need. That's the basis for what we do.
But does a river not provide a public service?
But within that one system, we can target, say, for example, kura and karangareo schools will still exist, but we do it within the coherence of one education system, not two separate education
So there you go.
systems.
There's education system for Māori that he's happy to support, which is separate from who it's providing for. It's run by Māori for Māori, but because it comes under the Ministry of Education, he's okay. So basically what he's saying is if the Māori Health Authority, if he's consistent, was run by Māori for Māori under the current health system, it would be okay. Guess what? It's under the current health system. What is your point, Humpty Dumpty?
The point is he's trying to blow on a dog whistle as much as he can because he knows a big chunk of his party support doesn't like this stuff. And he's trying to walk, I think, a personal line that he doesn't have as much of a problem with Māori as some of his supporters do.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
Okay, so do you think that a separate health system is being created in the development of the Māori Health Authority?
Correct. So I see that as two separate systems, and that's why I think that the Māori...
Notice the language, though. I see that as two separate systems. That's very different from it's two separate systems. I see you and me as friends, Chewy. You may see it very differently. I see us as quality broadcasters. Most of the media in the world may see it very differently. You know what I'm saying? So he either picked that very carefully or he came across it by luck. But Mr. Luxon sees it as two separate entities. Doesn't mean that it is two separate entities.
Health Authority should be scrapped.
Okay, so the Māori Health Authority, as you'll be aware, has iwi Māori partnership boards. Do you know what they do?
Yes, and they exist, that you can have iwi partnership boards that exist within the current one healthcare system or one Ministry of Health as it is today.
But there's not going to be a separate hospital for Māori.
No, but there is.
So it's not going to be a separate health system.
Yeah, but that's where the clarity.
Do you know what the budget is for health versus Māori Health Authority?
I don't know.
It's
that.
$15 billion for the health system,
Yep.
and about $168 million is all they've allocated so far for the Māori Health Authority. It's hardly a separate health system.
All I'm saying to you very clearly,
1%. 1%. And Mr. Luxon gets challenged with that. And what's his response? All he's got is the.
I think I've been very clear. I've said very clearly.
Point.
I have to repeat myself because I've said this so clearly. Because
So
I'm good at politics.
You listen to this question, and the response when Ryan Bridge says, it's hardly this, and his response is the talking point. It's completely ignoring the question and not engaging. It's the talking point.
For health system.
all I'm saying to you very clearly is that in the delivery of public services, we should not have two systems, two separate systems. We should have one system. We can have innovation within that, deliver those services by Māori, for Māori.
But why is it okay for a river?
Okay. Really important point there. Listen to this
Deliver
again.
those services by Māori, for Māori.
Why is it okay for a river?
So let me read this to you because I jotted it down. Just think about what the Māori Health Authority is, yeah? He's against that. But what he's okay with is innovations within the health system delivered by Māori for Māori. Innovations within the health system delivered by Māori for Māori. So Luxon's for that, but he's against the Māori Health Authority. Christopher Luxon is for innovations within the health system delivered by Māori for Māori. He even gets to a point in a second where Ryan Bridge says to him, so let's cancel the Māori Health Authority, but then we can still allocate that $168 million to Māori. And he says, yes. So it's not the money. It's not the Māori who are delivering it for Māori. It's that he's trying to sell some kind of bullshit lie that it's a second health system, and that it's also that Labor bad. That's the argument. That's it.
If he's going to bang this drum for separatism, it's the same drum that Seymour's banging.
And remember,
don't like it.
and remember, it's this man who claimed the conversation around co-governance is immature and divisive and has nothing to do with them. This man that we're listening to right now, that we're going to keep listening to, and I apologize for that.
Why is it okay for a park and not for the health system?
Well,
what is the fundamental
well,
difference?
the government hasn't made the case for that. You know, they haven't made the case
What's
because
the case against it?
So the public services are designed for all
Well,
New Zealanders
we'll
to deliver.
go
And we
past that
target
one.
New Zealanders and support New Zealanders on the basis of need. And so what we want to be able to do is target those needs, meet those needs
Yeah.
within one system.
Yes,
You can
that's
have
what we're saying.
Yeah. So if the need is Maori,
It's
for example,
targeted at
dying 9
Maori.
years earlier, how do you do that, Mr. Luxon?
to schools, for example, within
Yeah.
an education system, but it's within the confines of one
Okay,
coherent
all right. So
system.
here's an example then. So let's say we keep the health system as it is,
Mhm.
but because presumably you want to address the 7-year inequity in terms of lifespan between Māori.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the health system as it is, and then would you be okay with then iwi providing their own health services and being funded by the taxpayer to do that?
They do that in many cases today within
but
the
I'm
existing
sure
system.
cranking it up.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Absolutely, because
I'm losing
Okay.
my mind.
Okay, you ready? Remember what I
I'm
just said there?
losing my mind.
Chewy, you might have been having a seizure at the time.
I am currently
Christopher
having a
Luxon.
seizure.
Christopher Luxon just said, that's what I'm talking about, when he was asked, are
what
you
we're talking
okay with iwi providing their own health services and having the public funded? And his response was, that's what I'm talking about. So he's okay with iwi providing health needs for Māori, being funded by the public, but he's cancelling the Māori Health Authority.
Right. Good. Yes. No, he's been very clear on that.
We'll keep going.
So is that not so?
Because what I'm trying to say to you is, look, I'm interested in outcomes, right? Really
Yeah.
strongly. We have real challenges around, Māori health outcomes. Fully understand that. But over the last 5 years, this government has not delivered a single improved
that.
Māori, health outcome.
Understand
And
that.
under the Māori Health Authority, by its own admission, it's saying for another 5 years it won't deliver an improved outcome.
Okay.
A decade of no.
Look, I want to give credit
what's
where
the
credit's
outcome?
due. Credit where
What's the
credit's due.
outcome?
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? And let's say V Bunch said Ryan finally brought his brain into the studio today. Yay, at last. However, trends within the health system, and this is not an excuse, you will not see a change within a trend within a health system over 5 years, right? And what Mr. Luxon is saying is, in 5 years, there's been no improvements. I actually disagree with that significantly, but we can get into that another night. But let's go with it. Therefore, the question, Ryan, is what differences will we see in your first 5 years as government? If you are criticizing the incumbents because there's been no health outcome benefits in 5 years, what are you going to guarantee this country that we will see with Māori healthcare under your system in the first 5 years? And if you don't get it, will you resign? Because he's basically saying they haven't done shit in 5 years. So what that implies is we will. Because obviously, if you're saying they haven't done shit and you're going to go, nah, we're not going to do shit either, there's no talking point there. So he's implying we will.
It's
So
just such
what
a
will
weird
you do?
position they're taking, is that Labor have not done anything, but we're going to undo everything that they've done. And and it's all outcomes of 5-year plans from Comrade Luxon. It's just so bizarre.
You can't call him comrade.
Well, if he's talking about a 5-year plan, a little man called Stalin had the same idea. So, it's you're right. Outcomes are from the health system are on such a long timeline. You're talking almost generational change
course.
we're aiming for.
Of course. Now, maybe some of this comes back to messaging, and maybe the Māori Health Authority, if indeed they have said you won't see anything in 5 years, is not the best way to say it. Maybe without giving that time frame, you could say it's a long-term plan. But whatever. Let's get the last 60 seconds of this and see where we go. I can't remember actually. I think I've read on my notes. So let's just enjoy the last 60 seconds of this delightful interaction together.
Improved outcomes is unacceptable. Now, we can have one healthcare system that actually targets people on the basis of need, and that may be through the use of other community organisations as well as Māori or iwi organisations.
Is the money that would otherwise be spent on the Māori Health Authority, you will take that money and you will give that to iwi to deliver health services?
Absolutely, because what I'm really...
So there's at least $170 million from your...
Yeah, but remember, that means he's not arguing the money.
No.
So that has to be clear. he's not arguing. He's not arguing it's a waste of money to spend 170 on Maori health needs because he just said
arguing
big
the
time.
logo.
Yeah.
He's arguing the logo and the branding. It seems to be his only objection.
Yes, preach it. That's exactly you got it. You got it spot on there. He's arguing the logo, 100%.
Budget that you will be giving to iwi to deliver health services.
Yeah, because I come from a different place, which is that I think that actually delivering those services, there's not one mode of delivery out of Wellington that has to deliver those services. Actually delivering those.
This is the other bullshit. I guarantee you, if you have a look at the Māori Health Authority, there's no like 0.7.4. We will have one version of delivery, and it'll only come out of central. Okay, do you know what comes out of central Wellington? Funding for the police. Is there one mode of delivery, or in each region, do they approach it the best way for that region? You know, the kids in your school, the grandkids in your schools, funding comes from central government. Do you think in every single school it comes out exactly the same, or do they provide the need for the kids that are in front of them? So this is just a bullshit talking point, and I'm fucking over it. I'm over it big time.
Services through community organisations that are closest to the people and to the challenges that are on the ground is the right way to do it. At the moment, so much of our money is lost in the bureaucracy of Wellington. Okay. Our healthcare money at the moment is being spent building mega bureaucracies in Wellington when we believe in localism and devolution, and those closest to it should deploy it and actually deliver it. I think, you know, you've got community organisations that can deliver food lunch programs into schools much better than Wellington can. Yep. I think Maori health organisations can actually deliver Maori health services a lot better than what the government can do centrally through Wellington.
I did a piece last year, which was Christopher Luxon is coming for your school lunches. You hear what he just said? So in other words, central government can't deliver school lunches to schools, but local bodies can. So therefore, central government will cancel it, and then all of a sudden there'll be some people left without it.
Yeah. So some schools will get it and others won't. And it's just like this pushback against this monolithic Wellington-based bureaucracy that they seem to be conjuring out of the bad old days of the 70s. Is just so tired. We have tried neoliberal public-private
claptrap.
Public-private cooperation. Well, let's get the businesses know how to run this better, so we'll just pay for more consultants, and we'll pay a private company to do it and make profit. It's like I want to go the other way. Bring back the Ministry of Works.
I want to just finish up again with just actually reiterating what we've just seen, right? We've seen Mr. Luxon say he is for innovations within the health sector, and those systems can be delivered by Maori for Maori. He's for that. He is okay. In fact, he's more than okay with iwi providing their own health services and the public funding it. In fact, when that point got brought up in this, he said, "That's what I'm talking about," and got all a little bit of sweat running on the side of his face, right? However, he is going to cancel the Māori Health Authority.
Yeah.
Because he's selling some kind of strange idea that a Māori health funding that makes up 1% of their overall health budget is going to use that 1% and start up their own health system. Ooh, he is okay with Kohanga Reo and other Māori schools because they come under the Ministry of Ministry of Education. Sorry, he's trying to sell the boogeyman thing that the Māori Health Authority won't come under the health system. It will. It's completely hypocritical. He's not a moron. He's gaslighting, 100% gaslighting and dog whistling. This is comedian Mike King, who's a suicide prevention, I don't know if activist is the right word, I apologize if that's the wrong word, but works in that area now with Gumboot Friday, talking about what's happening in New Zealand at the moment, especially around youth suicide. And the reason that I want to play this, especially if you haven't seen it, is to demonstrate, I guess, when somebody is so into something, and I think the wording I used in the YouTube write-up is identifying a systemic issue in our healthcare. So let's have a listen to Mike. It's 5 minutes long, but it's worth listening to. I don't think we'll come and interrupt this because, as I said, I don't have a lot to add to this. But we are going to talk about this afterwards. So here's Mike King on The Rock this morning.
More kids
Yeah.
die from eating disorders than any other mental health disorder out
Really?
there.
I bet
Yeah.
so many people would not know that.
No.
It
That's-
is the
that's shocking.
most deadly. And it is the
Boys
silent.
and girls.
Yeah, it's the silent one. I can tell you right now, you have listeners in their houses, in their cars, crying right now and nodding their heads because their kids are suffering and no one can say. And the wait list to get there, to get to see a specialist is 18 months. 18 months. I have so many families taking their sick children with eating disorders and being turned away. I have families who have had their child in the eating disorder ward at Auckland Hospital who have been kicked out of the ward, who have attempted suicide on the way out the gate.
Yeah.
And then tried to get back in and they just get turned away.
Wow.
Now, this is only a problem for families affected by it. But every family knows a family that this is happening to, but we're all remaining silent. So if you have a child, and this is my message to everyone out there, if you have a child with an eating disorder now, or potentially is going to have an eating disorder later in their life, because they don't like who they are, they don't like how they look, they think they're the only ones screwing everything up. If you think that someone is going to come in on a white horse and save your child, there are no white horses coming. There's no one coming. If you put your faith in the system, there is a better than evens chance that your child will die, because no one is coming. Now, we can either sit around and we can whinge about it, or we can do one of two things about it. We can invest in our own system, which is Gumboot Friday. And if you can't invest, stop being silent. You need to speak up about this. I am sick and tired of people coming to me and go, I love your post, Mike. I love your post. What, the post where I wrote about the mum whose child's dying or whose child is dead? You love that post. These posts aren't meant for you to be. You're not meant to love these posts. You're meant to be hurt by these posts. You're meant to be scared by these posts. You are meant to be horrified. You are meant to be angry. Be angry. Stop being silent and leaving it for other people to do it. Because I'll tell you now, other people are tired. I'm tired. I'm tired of leaving my home on the fucking weekend and having my wife crying because I'm not home. I'm tired of all these fucking virtue signalers on social media telling me what I should be doing. I'm just tired. I can't do it. We collectively have to fucking do something. We cannot let the bureaucrats that run this country, and this is not a political thing. If you think that when National get in, things are going to be different, you're living in la la land.
Yeah.
If we don't do something about these arrogant bureaucrats, then no one is going to do anything. I hear parents all the time talking about their kids leaving their socks on the floor or dishes in the sink. There are hundreds of families out there that would give anything for their kids' socks to be on the floor. To fucking have dishes in the sink. It's fucked up. The system is fucked up and no one is doing anything about it. We have to do some shit.
You're doing stuff about it though, Mike.
I can't do it anymore, honestly. I just can't.
I know, but you've done so much though, man.
Just broken, man. I'm just fucking broken.
But you have saved so many families though, man. I know that probably doesn't feel much when I say it, and people say it to you, but it's so honestly true, man. You have saved so many families. You continue to do every week. You ask people to do what you're doing right now to be vulnerable. Like, you doing this, like, you continue to do so much great work to save so many New Zealanders, man. Like, I on behalf of everybody listening, those families you have saved, thank you. Like, what you've 100% changed the game for so many families in this country, mate. And so many people listening, like New Zealanders that listen to the show, like, want to be part of that change to stop all this broken.
So many people do.
System that's fucked.
They don't know where to go. They know that you and I Am Hope and Gumboot Friday is the one shining beacon of hope, of leading the way, of trying to make that change. And you have made the change.
Yeah,
you have.
Well, my wife's a deputy principal, Mike, and sorry. So she said, without you, Gumboot Friday, that's the only time she could get kids in. Otherwise, there was nothing.
Honestly, without other people's help, without people donating, my big fear is it's just not going to be there.
Yeah, we can text in boots for Gumboot Friday, $3 donation.
Yeah, to 469.
469.
There you go. We'll leave it at that. That comes to an end. Let's leave that up. I mean, like, I know that we joke, and we don't really joke around, but we talk around sometimes about, you know, if you want to be a patron, if you want to be a Patreon, yada, yada, yada. Look, if you want to support something, there's something you could support literally right now. In fact, I will do it, and hopefully some of you guys will as well. And it's as they've just said, it's a $3 donation, and why the fuck not? 469. Yep. Enter and go boots, BOOTS. Done. Sent. Done. Thank you for donating $3 to Gumboot Friday, where 100% of this goes to funding free youth counselling via gumbootfriday.com. So there you go. Yep. So Steve just said, how can we do more? There you go, right there. And look, there's not many of us. We're just a few little ones, and you know, this won't add a huge amount to their coffers, but you know, we won't. If tonight you ever thought about being a patron on our thing, don't worry about it tonight. Don't think about it tonight. Do a text boots to 469 and make a $3 donation, and you know, the little bit that we can do here with you guys watching can do here might help a little bit. I mean, the thing I liked as well is from being someone who's worked in radio and knowing a couple of those guys, not well, but well enough to say good day to them in the hallways. You know, The Rock is the big tough. Think about The Rock, yeah? The big tough, blokey, burly, you know, fuck you kind of radio station. Two things. From knowing working in radio, even on The Rock, the whole kind of swearing, the old F word, is not really the done thing. I love that they just let it go. I mean, it would have been it would have been terrible if they had gone, okay, I'll go watch those F words. Then, like, let it go. Great. It was real. It was raw. There's not going to be any issues with that. But also, that's the place, you know, it started in Hamilton, The Rock, alongside The Edge. It was the, you know, the dirty, misogynist, sexist radio station that made tits and ass jokes all the time. And that was sort of their label. And now it's evolved. I noticed on the billboard in the background, it says since 1991. And what's that, 31 years, it's evolved into one of the hosts there is one of the original hosts who's been there the whole 30 plus years. Rog is his name. All of them in tears talking about youth suicide. I just think it's quite a nice commentary on where we are in 2022 versus perhaps where some of these places were, or some who these people were in the 1990s. Sorry, I'm finished talking now, George.
Yeah, they definitely weren't taking the piss since 91 then, weren't they? Which I guess there's a time and place not to take the piss since 91.
Yeah. There's some things in this conversation with baby boomer Kerre where she actually says something that I think are going to make your ears prick up with a little prediction you made at the end of last year about what's going to happen this year. So Kerre Woodham has put out a piece that basically says, this is an audio bit, National could be snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And if it did, it would be one hell of an achievement. Let's play this for you. Chewy, throw your hand up or wave your hands around like you just don't care if you want to jump in at any stage. I'll probably pause it at some stage, but let's have a listen to Kerre Woodham's sort of analysis. It's funny, talking about motivated cognition, it's like Kerre Woodham is basically saying all these terrible things about Labour, and then like, so why is it National doing better? That's basically the summation of this. Let's have a listen. Oh, it's over here, isn't it?
9% of New Zealanders believe the country is on the wrong track. 42% believe it's going in the right direction. 77% of people feel poorly or not so good about the economy. 22% think it's good or excellent. And this is one of the largest gaps since the pandemic. And yet, National is only slightly ahead of Labour in the latest polls from Talbot Mills. They also run Labour's private political polling. In the
what's going on, Chewy? They're only slightly ahead. They should be smack. I mean, like, because financially I'm doing fantastically. They should be so much further ahead. What's going on here? I remember listening to Ricky Gervais he used to do the XFM radio show, which I still listen to sometimes on the internet. And they were talking about the financial crunch that was coming in the early 2000s. And Ricky Gervais goes, I don't get it. I'm doing really well. I've never been richer. And I kind of get that vibe, but not in a joking way from these sorts of people. It's like, it's just, I don't understand. Things are going so well. Yeah. For you, sweetheart.
Results, Te Pāti Māori would hold the balance of power when it came to forming a government. Get ready for another 3 years of a Labour Greens government, people. That is the joy of living in a democracy. How is it?
Don't you love it when right-wingers, like the right-wingers that stand up for democracy and stuff, when it doesn't work in their favour, they're like, oh, fucking democracy.
Yeah.
You know, what are we going to do about it?
That when even Labour knows they're stuffing things up and getting things wrong, hence the change of leader, hence the policy reset, there is still the potential for them.
Can I say this? You know who Isaac Butterfield is? Australian comedian.
Oh yes, yeah.
Fairly controversial. He's got a very good beard.
Him, yes.
Yeah, very good beard. Quite controversial. He did a bit the other day. I haven't seen it, but he was talking about how Jacinda Ardern, this is going around the internet at the moment, ran away, and I ran out of gas and ran away from her job. I thought about trying to get a hold of him and just go, when you're on stage, if someone screams at you that you're a cunt for 60 straight minutes, you might eventually go, I've had enough, I'm getting off stage. Now, multiply that by about 20 million, and you might start to get to the point where I could imagine someone in public life actually being over it and wanting out. Now, I'm not naive enough to say that it's not more calculated than that, but just this idea of, why did she run away from it? I'm like, I don't think anyone has any idea. This is the first prime minister we've had that apparently is going to potentially need to have security for the rest of her life. That's what the Secret Service is saying, or the SIS is saying. I just don't think anyone quite gets it. And I thought about, a comedian on stage screaming at them to eventually they went, I've had enough, and they walk off stage. But if a leader does it, it's like, pathetic. What a lie. So maybe not. Maybe not. Anyway, that was referencing Kerre Woodham's thing about the Labour. They know they're doing wrong because they've changed leaders.
To get another 3 years. I know at News Talk ZB on this particular show, we're in our own little echo chamber here, but it can't be that Labour are doing things right. Even they know they're not doing things right.
It can't be.
The poll says people are dissatisfied and worried about the economy.
Yeah.
But voters don't feel that National is the overwhelming answer. Matthew Hooton, writing in the Herald this morning, says National's nonchalance stems first from it not understanding just how badly Hipkins, Cepoloni, Robertson, Wood want to win a third term. They don't appreciate their hunger, their desperate desire to see things through, to get the policies they care about pushed through.
It's actually a really interesting commentary from Matthew Hooton, because what he's saying is we see, and I'll put my hand up, we see Labour sometimes as a bit of a soft bet, like they don't play politics well enough. But that description of Labour by Matthew Hooton means these guys are grizzled and hardened, and they're in it for the fight, which is a particularly interesting small observation from him.
Whenever Hooton pipes up, he's been so wrong so many times about his own party and the people that he backs. He threw in with Judith Collins, he threw in with Wayne Brown.
Was he Muller as well? He might have gone in with Todd Muller, mightn't he?
I'm not sure about that. But yeah, he just keeps on back and loses. At what point do you go, actually, he's a Labour Party plant?
Let's keep going.
They believe that they have to keep National out of power because of the damage that they believe the 1990s National Party did to families, communities, and childhoods.
Yes.
They remember that. They themselves were affected by it. And they remain convinced that the National of today is ready to re-emerge in the clothing of the National of the 1990s.
Well, I think the point that Kerre Woodham making there is fair, but I think the one addendum she's missing is she's saying Labour is convinced of that. It would appear that enough of the voting base is also convinced of that to be keeping it close at the moment. That's what I would say. This bloody democracy, democracy. Psh. You know, it seems that enough people, which is why when and I haven't got the numbers tonight, but when we last looked at the trust numbers, that the trust numbers for Luxon were terrible. I think there's enough of the public who remember those days, who remember all the things that came off, all the user pays that came in, all that sort of stuff, that it's not just perhaps the Labour leadership who think that, but enough New Zealanders also think that warrant concern.
I think it's interesting because we've got two, I guess, like institutional memories, I guess, of that time, like the National Party of the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people remember that for all of those changes in policies. You know, what was it, euthanasia? Just the absolute brutal cuts to social services.
Ruthonomics?
Rogernomics. That was Labour, and that's the other sort of institutional memory. The farming sector remembers that, and they blame Labour, and they still blame Labour for it.
Although, did you read I think in the weekend I bookmarked it somewhere, the head of Federated Farmers saying that the farmers have lost a friend in Jacinda? Did you read that?
What?
Yeah, I'll try and find it. I'll try.
Oh my God. Has the Federated Farmers, I mean, they must have lost touch with a big segment. Well, not even a big segment, a loud segment of farming, though. Because groundswell came out of farmers that didn't feel that like they were being listened to by Federated Farmers.
There you go. Found it just like that because I am a genius. Federated Farmers President Andrew Hogarth believes the agriculture sector is losing a friend with the shock resignation of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. So, you know,
Jesus. Okay,
just
you could have maybe cracked that one out a little bit earlier, there, buddy.
All right, let's keep going with Kerre Boomer, whatever her name is. Smortem.
Matthew Hooton says too that National doesn't understand David Seymour's ACT party, and its only credible coalition partner. If, and it seems likely, that Christopher Luxon can't get National above 40%. I've spent time with Christopher Luxon. He's come into the studio. He's taken calls from you.
She almost seems in pain, doesn't she?
All the answers. He's got all the figures. He's got all the detail.
He's got all the answers.
An impressive grasp of detail.
Impressive.
He's perfectly personable.
Yeah, yes.
But he's just not getting any cut through. I don't know what more he can do. He can't be somebody else.
Wait for it.
Somebody else could be the leader of the National Party, but I don't think that would work right now.
Oh, did you hear it, Chewy?
I did.
Did you hear it, Chewy?
I'm just saying.
Hang on. Stop. This is a little bit of your glory. So I'm leaving. And you can just, this is your prediction from last year. What would you like to add?
I am all a tither. I will be, and this is my other prediction here. I will be unbearable if I am correct on this. I will like a sun collapsing into a black hole. I will be overwhelmed by my own smugness if I get this right.
Yeah. All right.
Mark it on the calendar.
We'll keep going.
Especially after Labour has replaced its leader. It would look desperate, and it would be desperate. I think Hooton is right, though. The best opportunity to gain traction on Labour would be for National to form a working alliance with ACT. Work out what policies they can work together on, what a centre-right New Zealand would look like.
Centre-right, ACT
so
party.
Voters can decide whether that is the direction they want New Zealand to head in. We know where Labour wants to take us. We've seen an example of the sort of policies they would like to become set in stone in New Zealand's legislation. We know what Grant Robertson can and cannot do. So we have a good idea of what a Labour government looks like.
So this is where we go through the things like lowest unemployment, lower inflation than the rest of the OECD, all these good things. This is what Grant Robertson's all about. Is that what she means? Do you think that's what she means? Or do you think she means, they talk about gender too much? Do you think she might mean that? That might be more what they mean. I don't know.
I think they really do need to work together, Christopher Luxon and David Seymour, to show voters what a centre-right New Zealand would look like. more about
We
the
know what it-
policies.
we
more
know
about
what
the
it would look
direction New
like.
Zealand- No, we don't want any more empty rhetoric. We've had 5
That's
years
all he's got.
of sloganeering and empty rhetoric,
Oh my
little
god.
catchphrases that have become earworms for a generation of people.
There you go. That's enough. Speaking of
Man,
earworms,
she is so like okay. I I like to think that I don't like to think. I'm very aware that often I'm in my own lefty bubble. And at times that can just swing around and smack you in the face. Wow, that's gonna hit her like a fucking truck.
I used to work after Kerre Woodham. I don't have many
Mm.
nice things to say about her as a human being. I now want to see Labour win more than ever before, if for no other reason to stick it up. That
She sounds divorced from reality.
yeah. I mean,
I can get someone going, hey, look, Labour's not my cup of tea. There's some things in the last couple of years that I didn't agree with. But that's just that's unhinged
Yeah.
Kool-Aid drinking there.
yeah. Well, look, she's not a very nice person in my opinion, and also she's so disingenuous at the moment. And look, this is not just me talking. You know, Chewy, there's some people I talk to in the radio industry about various things. Is that since she took over from Leighton Smith, and look, Leighton Smith, for all my disagreements with his politics, was the yardstick when it came to talkback. The best talkback host New Zealand's ever seen, without question. Kerre Woodham fills in, takes that slot over, and rather than forging her own path to where she would naturally sit politically, which I used to listen to in the evenings before I came on after her, she's basically just taken on a right-wing position to service Leighton's audience.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's also it's just real performative kind of radio and stuff as well, that it's like, yeah, and just real self-serving. Hello, Simon. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, guys.
Hello, Simon.
And Simon has actually, did you write the headline, or has this been
I
like
did
taken
write the headline that time. Yeah.
potentially the best headline I've seen in a very long time? Simon Wilson, the 2023 election is a choice between the best government yet and the worst. Hey, we could do Jeremy Clarkson voices today. And the worst
In the world.
in the
I'll let you do
world.
that. Yeah.
And Simon, your article is available behind the paywall at NZ Herald, and also in the physical NZ Herald if people want to read the whole things for themselves.
That's right. You can buy an individual newspaper, and do you remember the old days? You can still do that.
Madness. A bit before my time, but I remember my parents always used to get the Star in Auckland. The Star on in Auckland, Chewy, they had the Herald in the morning and the Star every day. The Star in the afternoon would come to your inbox. Not
Every
inbox.
day.
An inbox in the old days, Chewy, was called a
Inbox.
mailbox. That was what they were
Mailbox.
called in the old
No,
days.
you've lost me.
Yeah. So this is where I want to start, Simon. We're just scrolling down through your wonderful article here, but I want to read one paragraph from it. I want to start there and then let's have at it. Okay. So here we go. Straight from Simon's opinion piece. You're talking a bit about the anti-Jacinda clamour, and so you say this. Besides, despite all the anti-Jacinda clamour, there's something far more important about this election. We face a choice between what could be the most progressive government in our lifetimes or the most reactionary. To put it another way, the best government yet or the worst, you can decide which is which. And I just really would like to start there, Simon, and say to you very calmly, what the hell do you mean by that?
So there have been some people today who have thought that I was talking about the current government as being, suggesting that I think it's the best government. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this election we're going to have this year will be an election fought between two parties who are aligned on the centre left. That's the Labour Party and the Greens, and two on the right, centre right, which is National and ACT. There are other parties in contention, obviously to Party Maori, but they've declared pretty clearly that they're not happy about going into an actual government with either side. And New Zealand First has said much the same. So you've got a centre-left bloc and a centre-right bloc. And the fascinating thing about this election this year is that, we're not going to have a majority government formed by one party as we've got at the moment. That's an aberration. That won't continue. We're going to have a government that will very likely be either Labour and the Greens or National and ACT. And the extraordinary thing now for New Zealand is that in ACT and the Greens, we have two parties which have continued to poll strongly, right through the last term. They've built their strength, both of them, stronger now than they were in the last election. And both of those parties have pretty clear values. It's likely that they're going to roll out the kinds of policies we've been hearing from them. They're not going to shock us with a new turn of direction or anything. And what it means is that if you've got a government, if we have a government that is Labour-led but has Greens in cabinet and a coherent and central part of the government, there will be a range of policies that we haven't yet seen being implemented in this country, progressive policies, a wealth tax perhaps, an expectation that we're going to move properly faster and more decisively on climate change, a redistribution of wealth to the poor, those sorts of issues. That's on one side, and on the other side, ACT has made it very clear that they're going to be super tough on crime. We're going to see a return of three strikes. We're going to see a really punitive approach there. We're going to see an attack on the idea that we should have a high-wage economy. We're going to see an attack on a range of the measures that have been introduced cautiously by this current Labour government to introduce more equity into economic relations. And we're also going to see a real freeing up of regulations, much more of a laissez-faire government, much more of a sense of, okay, it's a jungle out there, guys, go for it. And that's a much more reactionary approach than we have seen from any government, I think, for some time. So we've got a real choice there, and the choice isn't defined by Labour or National, it's defined by their partners. And that makes this election a very significant election, in my view, in our times. It's hard to think that we've had a more significant election for many years.
You said in the article as well, I'm paraphrasing badly here, but like ACT's never been in a position where they have had enough MPs in or enough sort of presence to demand everything. This one may be different. If that is, are we going to see, like it seems that National recently has drifted towards the right with some of their language around boot camps and that kind of stuff. Is this something that, I mean, I guess I can't really ask you that. Would it be better or worse for the country? How do you just see that? How do you see National having more of a, how would you see ACT as having more of an input into a national-led government through policy and stuff? How would you see that working out for the country?
So if you remember all the way back to 2008 when John Key became the Prime Minister, he formed a coalition government. National didn't have a majority on its own, so it was a minority government, but he formed a coalition government with the Maori Party and with ACT. And it meant that actually he could have just chosen ACT, or he could have just chosen the Maori Party, but he chose both. And what that gave him was the ability to go, okay, we're the National Party. We're going to go with ACT sometimes, and we're going to go with the Maori Party sometimes. And the two of them weren't natural bedfellows at all. But it meant that National kind of steered a course between the two. It was very clever politics. We're unlikely to see that happening this time. It's much more likely we're going to see National and ACT together, and that will give David Seymour and the ACT Party a lot more straightforward strength, a lot more ability to go, this is how we need to see it happening.
I think that's one of David Seymour's biggest magic tricks that he's managed to pull off, is getting all of those extra MPs in and keeping them completely silent. Like we haven't heard anything from
It's amazing, isn't it?
And considering some of the views that they had going into the last election, I think that was a must. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall of like, okay, so you can come into Parliament, but just shut up. Just don't say anyone
so
ever.
what Seymour did in the last election was that he cleaned out the traditional act list. There were a number of people there who had usually been fairly high ranked. They were all gone. He brought in people who were going to strengthen ACT in the rural community, people like Nicole McKee from the gun lobby, and in other ways he created a caucus, that was going to be dependent on him, and that he was going to be able to rule effectively. And he's been extraordinarily good at that. I mean, it's been a masterclass in party discipline, if you like. The problem with it is, for him, I imagine, is that when he sits down, if National and ACT win this election and they sit down into coalition negotiations, who's he got that he wants to put up for cabinet? He's got himself, he's got Brooklyn Belden. That's it, because none of the others, we haven't heard anything from any of the others. They haven't appeared to have gained the experience necessary. So that's what's happened on that side. On the other side, extraordinary, and it's worth saying about ACT that that's allowed them to maintain their electoral strength. On the other side, we've seen this extraordinary thing that there was an attack on James Shaw and the leadership of the Greens by a group of people in the Green Party, and they had to go through a whole process of, James Shaw was knocked off the leadership and he had to reapply, and a whole lot of other people went, "Oh, do I want to be leader?" And then they went, "No, actually, I don't." And Shaw was re-elected or reappointed to that job, with overwhelming support. And in the process, you've got to assume that the party was pretty considerably strengthened by that, because there was a whole grassroots up movement around the country where they went, "What's going wrong? Do we need to sort this out?" And they did. And the fascinating thing about the Greens is that while a whole lot of people in the media and commentators love to say the Greens are in a mess and they're all over the place and don't know what they're doing and they aren't delivering, well, they haven't been in government. It's been a majority Labour government, so they haven't been able to deliver in the way they wanted to anyway. But they have retained their strength. They are still polling over 10%. They are still there in a way that minor parties are meant to fade away, but they haven't faded away. And I think they're going into this year stronger than they were in 2020. And that's a pretty remarkable thing that they've done.
I think one of the reasons perhaps they haven't faded away is a bunch of people voted for Labour last time, and through various opinions and decisions made by the Labour government, they don't want to vote for them again, so they've drifted back to the Greens, I think. And then also a bunch of people who voted for National last time are a little bit perhaps annoyed that Christopher Luxon isn't going as hard groundswell as they'd like them to, so they've drifted to ACT. And I wonder if we talked about this last year in our last show, Simon, what was the biggest news story of last year? And I don't think it was an individual story in New Zealand. I think the discontent or the disquiet that started with Delta and went into that Wellington protest and is still impacting politics today is probably one of the reasons those fringes are getting stronger. And I'm not saying fringes, and they're both mainstream parties, but the further left and further right. But you wrote in your article about being in the Deep South and having some conversations with people in the Deep South. Though I'm assuming you're meaning down here as opposed to obviously America.
Otago and Southland.
And you mentioned groundswell, I think, in your article as well. And your article paints a picture that don't count your chickens. In fact, what you say at one point is it's way too soon to predict. I don't know about you, Chewy, but that's not what I'm hearing from people. What I'm hearing from 9 out of 10 people is this is over. It's time for a change. Let's get rid of, as you say, that whatever her name is. Why are you thinking that this is at the moment still a competitive race versus certainly everything I'm hearing, which is going, can't wait to get them. Let's be honest, can't wait to get her is what a lot of them are saying out. Where's the difference? What am I missing, or what is the general public missing?
My view of that is that there are blocks of voters in this country, blocks of people in this country who are finding it hard to talk to each other now. And that's showing up in politics, particularly in politics. So that the the kind of the anti-Jacinda thing, the idea that damn woman has ruined this country and has ruined our prospects, that's become a really dominant idea. But it isn't a dominant idea among everybody. It's a dominant idea in the groups where it circulates. But it doesn't follow from that. But it's a dominant idea much more widely. And I was really struck. I was in Central Otago, and I was sitting around a table with a group of people, and it was like nobody's going to vote for Jacinda Ardern. And I thought, well, I'm actually sitting around the table with a group of people who are clearly going to vote, and they were white and older and middle class, and they are the people who vote more than any other demographic in this country. But they weren't everybody. They weren't everybody by any means. And the idea that there were people in this country who saw the world differently from them, they seem to struggle with. And I was surprised at that because, I live in Auckland, where you can't live in Auckland and think that everybody thinks like you. You know that you just walk down the street and you can see people who clearly cannot be thinking like you because they're demographically different, and demographic diversity is so strong here, that that you're living in a society where there are lots of different competing views and lots of different competing values. And there are parts of the country where that isn't true, because overwhelmingly everybody's the same. And we hear a lot from Groundswell, and we hear a lot from people who know how to use the media and know how to talk about radio and know how to use social media and all of that stuff. But it doesn't mean that they're everybody.
Yeah, I've certainly been on the receiving end of that. The election where National won a few years back, I was very much in my lefty bubble of like-minded friends and comment sections and web forums, and I went to a party for the election results, and it was the worst evening of my life. It was very, very disappointing. And I was just sitting there going, I can't believe this has happened, because everybody I've spoken to, I was living in central Wellington. Everyone was sure it was going to be Labour back in again. And that's the danger of just staying in your bubble.
And that's 2008.
It's the echo chamber, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember 2014. I wrote about, after the 2014 election, I wrote about this in Metro magazine, where I was editor at the time. And most of the people I knew were convinced that Labour was going to win that election, that John Key was just not delivering, nobody liked him, had no policies, on and on and on it went. And it didn't happen like that at all. National pretty comfortably won that election. And there was a real reckoning on the centre left of what did we get so wrong? And it shouldn't have been hard for people to recognise that just because the people they were talking to thought one thing, it didn't mean that there weren't a whole lot of others thinking differently. And that's the thing we've got to know, we've got to understand about politics, that whatever group you're in, it's not the only group. And the thing that's different, I think that's different now in this election, is that politics is much more volatile. We know from our experience of the last 3 years since COVID that between now and the election, there will be some big issues, and they might be global, they might be local, they might be something that happens on the West Coast or in Auckland or whatever, and they will change things. We know that they'll have a really big influence. So, if you looked at last year, you would have gone, well, Three Waters is going to be one of the dominant issues in the election. Will it be next year? The legislation's passed, it might all be over. Three Waters might not be an issue anymore. Something else is going to come up that's going to be really important.
I spoke to Shane Jones over the summer holiday period when I was doing some work for Today FM, because he wrote a piece that basically said, what's in your wallet? That's it. That's going to be what decides this year. What's in your wallet? Economical issues. To which I posed a question doing talkback. If this is about the economy, let's talk about that. Who's going to handle the economy better? And if you say national, how do you respond to the ASB saying with that 2% GDP growth that currently the New Zealand economy is stupendously strong. Their words, not mine. So how do we then look at it? It was an interesting kind of delve into a lot of people who didn't really go beyond, let's say, hearing a headline from Mr. Luxon and taking that as gospel. But that's what Shane Jones was saying. It's all going to be about the purse strings and people's personal finances.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of goes back to what we were saying last night, is it'll be what people are paying in the supermarkets. It'll be how their KiwiSaver's going. It'll be how much their rents and mortgage payments have gone up. And rightly or wrongly, people will go, it's the government's fault.
Yeah, it's true and it's not true, I think. I mean, economic issues always trump other issues, yes. Yeah, but immediate crises also trump other things. Yeah, the thing that dominates the headlines becomes important too.
All right, team, thanks so much for joining us this evening. I know it's been a bit of a unique and different one. This has been a best of, in case you got confused halfway through. We appreciate you spending some time and being gracious with us on what we've been able to do over this funny period that we've been going through. As I said at the start of the show, if you caught it, not sure exactly when we'll be back to operating as per usual, would expect that to be in the first half of the third week of June, 19th, 20th, 21st, sometime in there, probably back to regular broadcasting. As of today and as of recording this, I can't give you that exact answer. Please follow me on Twitter, at Pat Brittenden, or Chewy is Chewy_NZ on Twitter. And that's the best place to find out what's happening on a day-to-day basis, to know if we're going to be live tomorrow night or not at all, or they're going to be best ofs or whatever it's going to be. So thanks for your time. And let me just put this up before we go. Huge thanks to our patrons. These are the patrons who are active as of the time of recording this. I'm sure some of them have dropped off since then, and maybe a heap more have signed on board. But when recording this on Tuesday, the 13th of June, these are the patrons that were active, and we thank you for supporting us in what we do. And I look forward to being back with you whenever we are. Follow me on Twitter to find out when those are going to be. And thank you for being a part of what we do. We look forward to continuing to get into this all the way up into the 2023 election and potentially beyond. Depends how we go. So thanks again, team. We'll catch you next time. Be safe, be well. And from Chewy, he's not here with us. And from me, hooroo.